We are joined now by Jerry Reese. Jerry, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Mike. I'm doing good. How about you?
Thank you. Appreciate a couple of minutes. Just chatted with the owner. Jerry, put into words this season in your words. How about this 2013 season?
Well, disappointing. I guess that's the number one word I can come up with is disappointing. Anytime you're 7-9 and you don't have a chance, and you get put out of the tournament, 2 or 3 games before the regular season ends. You want to have a chance to, late in the season, whether you're 7-9 or 8-8 or whatever your record is, you still want to be in contention in those last couple of games, and you love to be sitting up there with a record when you're already qualified for the playoffs when 2 or 3 games left. But, in a word, disappointing.
When we look at the Giants' performance, we can look at the injuries, which we know the amount of injuries you had, which was numerous. We can look at the turnovers, which we know had a lot to do with the team's performance. But there were other issues, too. When you separate the issues, what do you come up with?
Well, I come up with a combination of all those things. You can calculate the injuries, you can calculate the turnovers, you can calculate execution, you can calculate personnel. It's a combination of all those things. Here with the Giants, Mike, we win together, we lose together, and it's a combination of all those things. So you can point to all those things, and it took part in the 7-9. We start out 0-6, and I really don't have an answer for that. I think if you're 7-9, I think it's some personnel issues going on. If you end up 7-9, but if you start out 0-6, there's more than personnel issues, and we're trying to figure out what went wrong early in the season for us to come out the gate so poorly.
When you look at the offense going forward next year, I can't remember a year where there's probably more holes in the Giant offense. There's been, and some of that's age, some of it is injuries. There's going to be a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of places where the team needs to improve. How about the offense going forward? Can you remember a year where you had more work to do on the offense?
Well, there's always work to do, regardless of where your record ends up. Because this day in free agency, you always have free agents that are moving a lot of moving pieces at the end of the season, regardless of what your record is, whether you win the Super Bowl or where you're 7-9. We do have some issues offensively that we definitely need to address during this off season, and we're working hard at it.
Pugh had a very good year. Going forward, I asked Tom this. He was kind of like, I'll have to wait and see. I'll get your opinion. Is Pugh, clearly he's a keeper. Clearly he looks like he could be a real foundation player on that line for the next decade. Do you envision him left tackle or right tackle?
Well, I think he can play anywhere in the front, to be honest with you. We drafted him, and, we thought he could play left or right, or he could play either guard, and we thought he could be, a center if you really wanted him to play in there. So he's a good piece to the puzzle up front. We have to get younger up front, number one. We do have a couple of young players who were like, William Beatty didn't play as well as we thought. We thought he was coming on, and he didn't play as well as we'd like for him to play. And unfortunately, he broke his leg in the last game of the season right there. But we do expect him to be back and expect him to come back and be a better player than we saw this past season. James Brewer is a young player, is a big, massive guy that we want to come on and play better for. But we do have some age in the offensive line. Brandon Mosley is a kid that we like, is a young kid that we drafted. Eric Herman is a young kid that we drafted. So we do have some young guys infused up there. We do have some age that we need to address with free agency and the draft, and we'll do that.
This year, there's a lot of talk about this draft that this draft is unusually deep, unusually star-studded. There's a lot of talk. Some people even saying this could be the best draft in a generation. Do you see this draft as rich as so many people seem to?
Well, Mike, I see drafts all the same. You only get 7 guys, so I think there'll be 7 guys in there for us to get. So drafts. There's always good players in the draft. Sometimes you just have to dig deep into the draft and find who you need for your situation. And I think we'll be able to do that for us.
Do you look at it as a fact of, do you marry now free agency to the draft, where what you don't get in free agency, then you'll go to the draft that way, or will you still draft off the board based on just value and need?
Yeah, well, we in free agency, we try to see where our holes are and see what the money situation is and see who we can buy to help fill some holes in free agency. You know, you always want to get some younger players, you know, some young veterans in free agency, but the young veterans are the one that cost the most money. So sometimes you have to take a chance with some older guys, and sometimes the chances you take don't work out. But you know, us with the Giants, in the draft, we always try to take the best player, the best value up there, and I think you make less mistakes like that. You know, we have what our need is in the back of our mind when we're drafting as well. So it's a combination of all that, Mike.
You know, some tough decisions this year. Guys who have had good careers for you, guys who have won for you, and a lot of interesting issues that, you know, ones the fans look at that are guys who have talent, have had success, and obviously who are going to not be cheap. Guys like Nix, guys like Tuck, guys like that. Hard decisions for your football team.
Well, you know, those guys have been really good football players for us, for a long time. And you know, Nix didn't have the year that he wanted to have, but I still think he could be a good football player. He just has to stay healthy and focus more on what he's doing. But I do think he can still be a really good football player. And Justin Tuck played, you know, better than he's played in 2 or 3 years. So I think he's got some tread left on his tires, and there's going to be some tough decisions to make with those kind of players. There's always tough decisions to make, man. That's probably the hardest part of my job here is, when do you walk away from a player, and when do you try to keep a veteran player like those guys.